This is Barbara Jagan, and I am interviewing today Fred Tesone and Lois Tesone. And Chris Wecker is on the camera, and Fred Burns is assisting. And we're doing this for the Louisville History Museum, oral history interviews. So we're going to start with some general questions and asking each one of you to, first of all, give your full names and any nicknames? I think Fred may have a nickname or two.
I go by Fred Michael Tesone, Fred M. Tesone.
Okay.
A lot of people call me FM for short. And around town, the old town of Louisville, my nickname was Gike. I don't know what that came from. I think my brother started that, but that was a long time ago.
Are you still Gike?
No. And I don't want to be.
Well, some of the guys our age call him Gike.
Right, I've heard it before.
Yeah.
And Lois, what about you? Your full name?
Well, I was Lois Shalino, married Fred, and I didn't have a nickname. The girls didn't have a nickname, just the guys did, you know. But I was born in Kansas and moved here with my parents when I was 2 months old, so I tell everybody I really got to Louisville before Fred did, although he was born in Louisville. I got here in June, and he wasn't born until September of that year. So.
and Fred, what about your parents?
Well, they come from a small town in Italy called Pietro Bundante. That means Peter's Rock in Italian, and they came here in the late 1800s and lived at 1540 Main Street in Louisville. The house still is there. It's a little old blue house, and it still stands, and that's where I was born and raised, and one of 7 children.
And so that your grandparents?
Well, we're from Italy, yeah.
Your grandparents were the ones from Italy.
My grandparents were
We know his parents were from Italy.
My parents were born and raised in Italy,
all right,
and came to here in their, I think my mother was in her late teens and my father was in his early 20s, and that's when they come to the United States.
What was he doing? Was he a coal miner?
He was a coal miner. They first I think they went to Walsenburg and lived there maybe for several months, worked in the mines in Trinidad. Then they migrated up to Louisville where the mines were. There were several mines around the town of Louisville, and he worked in a couple of mines there. And he actually retired from the Monarch mine, which I think some of the old coal hills are still there, but that's where my father worked and retired. And I believe it was back, I think my father might have been considered the oldest living coal miner in Colorado. He retired out of the mines, I believe he was 75, and he was still working in the coal mines. And I think that's a record of some sort.
Wasn't there a accident at the Monarch? Was
he wasn't in that.
No, he was not involved in that. No, he was at another. And he worked at the Monarch mine, and he worked at the Shamrock mine. And I believe he may have retired from the Shamrock mine. I have to.
Where's the Shamrock?
Yeah, the Shamrock mine was near Erie, Colorado. Erie, Frederick, in that area. Yeah, way back when, yeah. And there were several coal mines, the Highway mine, the Centennial mine, the Monarch mine,
Acme mine.
The Acme mine, all kinds of mines.
Black Diamond
mine.
A lot of mines.
A lot of mines
the
in
rest
those
of your
days.
family? You had a fairly large family? Your parents had how many children?
We had 7 children. Okay, there were 4 girls, 3 boys, and just my sister Gloria's left out of all that, and she lives in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and we get together now and then.
His older brother, Fiore, worked in the coal mines also, but he got out of the coal mines and became the town barber. He was the town barber for many, many years, the only barber in town.
Where was the barber shop?
Well, his first barber shop was on Main Street, right on the corner where the Thunderbird Barber are now. And then he got a shop over here where I think it's an insurance agency now, next door to
The Blue Parrot.
That was his last shop. That's where he retired from.
Yeah.
or vice versa. I can't remember which one was which. Which one?
And I had been gone. Well, the last one was by the Blue Parrot there. That one.
Yeah, that was
the
his last
place.
barber shop.
And he had that shop there for 30 years.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah.
Lois, what about your parents, grandparents?
My grandparents, one set of grandparents came from Italy and one set of grandparents came from France. My mom and dad were both born in Kansas. My grandpa, they were coal miners and they migrated from Wisconsin to, well, this is by Italian grandparents, from Wisconsin in the iron mines to Chicago to Illinois in the coal mines and then down to Kansas in the coal mines. And when those mines came out, well, my dad and my uncle, a lot of relatives came to Colorado to mine coal, you know. I mean, I guess that was the thing that kept the country going in the coal mines. You know, and I always told my dad, gee, that was in 1930. Why didn't he go south to Oklahoma where they were drilling for oil? But no, they came
But
to.
then you wouldn't have been in Louisville.
That's true. But yeah, my dad worked in the coal mines until he was in an accident at Monarch Mine, and broke his back and
His hip.
he was in his hip, so he couldn't work anymore in the coal mines. But I think that was in 1939 when he got hurt.
Before that, he played some soccer.
Oh yeah, he played soccer. Tivoli Beer Company in Denver had a soccer team, and there was a team from Lafayette. There were a few guys from Lafayette, and my dad and everyone. They played for the Tivoli Union Brewing Company, and they won the Industrial League or something that year.
We have a picture of that.
Yeah, I have a picture of that, but he was a good soccer player. Yeah, we used to go watch him. You know, we were little people.
That was before soccer was very popular.
Oh yeah, and when they worked, I think I told that story when they worked down at, when they played down on the Tivoli field, they had a keg of beer on the sideline for all the players. You know, they were men. I mean, they weren't boys. They were grown men and had families, and that was their Sunday hobby.
Fred, where did your family, when you were growing up, where did your family live? In Louisville?
Well, yeah, I had to sit here and had to remember that. It was 541 Main Street. The house still exists.
Yeah.
It was right near the Elks on the west side of Main Street near the Elks, the third house down from the Elks, and that's where I was born.
And all the children were born there.
They were all
Really?
born there, yeah.
How big was it? How big was the house?
I look at it and I can't believe it. That I lived there, you know,
Yeah,
low ceiling.
very small. It was a 2-bedroom, but one major, not major, but bigger bedroom, and then one really, really tiny one
It was so tiny.
that they had to carve up to put the bathroom in, you know. But a nice-sized living room, a nice-sized dining room, because she used to have big family dinners where she would spread the table all through the dining room and living room, and 20 at a time, you know, would eat there.
Yeah.
But his mother was a great Italian cook.
Great cook.
So did you share bedrooms? And,
Oh.
Yeah, well, I shared a bedroom with in fact, the same bed with my brother Nello. And of course, the girls were all gone by then.
You were the youngest.
I was the very youngest, yes. And then my sister Gloria was next, who's still living. And then the rest are all gone. Yeah, a lot of great memories.
How did your sister do with all those boys?
She was a boss.
She took over. My sister
see.
Gloria. Oh, it wasn't easy.
She was a nurse. Gloria was a nurse.
She became a nurse and very, she was the boss and still is. She's in her middle 80s and great gal and just.
She
like I
visits
said,
here. She loves Louisville.
She still loves Louisville, yeah.
What do you remember about games that you played when you were young over on Main Street? Kids, some of the kids that you played with, as you know, when you were quite young.
Way back when, Louisville football was a big sport. the whole town used to close down when there was a football game. The whole Main Street was closed down. Restaurants and bars and everything, and people used to go to the game. In those days, there were afternoon games, and the old, which is now the middle school up here, it used to be the old Louisville High School. That's where we played our games, and football was a big thing, and we were good. We were good. A lot of good teams, and they went back. Even to my brother Nello's days, they were pretty good. That I don't remember those teams. I heard about them. That was before my time, but they started football then, and then we had a lot of great teams during those years.
Did you play football with your brothers and things on the street, that kind of thing?
They played baseball a lot on the streets.
Yeah.
We played a lot of, we used to play touch football on the streets, and the streets used to be dirt streets way back when, and I remember we'd get together, and I remember hurting my knees and things like that, playing, in the gravel on the streets, and that's how we kind of grew up. We didn't have the parks and all that stuff that exists now.
We used to play.
Some of your neighbors?
Pardon?
Do you remember some of
Your neighbors?
Yeah, in fact, I remember the one neighbor we had. My next neighbor was Anthony Calachi, and
Louis Romano. Romano's across the street.
Romano's across the street, and in fact, Mike Calachi was my baptismal godfather. The Blue Parrot, the original owner of the Blue Parrot Cafe, and they lived not too far away to the west of us. But then I think it was Anthony Calachi lived right next door. Was it Anthony lived next door?
Yeah, for a while.
For a while, yeah.
That was later, though, in the end.
That was a little later, yeah. But yeah, those were the days, and I used to clean the sidewalks during the winter, clean the snow off the sidewalks on the corner of the Blue Parrot. Right. When I was young, and I used to do some of that. Yeah.
And the Blue Parrot was in operation.
Oh yeah, that started way back when.
90 years.
It was called the Calachis then, and then
Calachi's Blue Parrot. Yeah.
The Calachis Blue Parrot.
Well, his mom used to tell us the story that when Mike Calachi opened the Blue Parrot, he and Jim came over apparently on the same ship to the United States and got to know each other in Louisville. And when he opened the Blue Parrot, he asked Jim to lend him some money. And I think the amounts changed over the years, but we kind of settled on $500. And then later, when the business really got going well, he asked Jim to be a partner in the business, and Jim said no, he wanted his money back. So he got paid back.
He got his $500.
He got his money back, which he probably shouldn't have. He should have went in as partner, right. But he worked in the coal mines, And but that's a story his mother used to tell us or one of them, that he had an opportunity to go in on the business, but he wanted his money back.
With so many in your family, did you have chores? Did you help your mother, or she pretty much did the cooking?
I look back, and when I grew up, I was a busy kid, busy young guy. I used to do. I remember my mother, who really ran the show more than my dad. My dad kind of was laid back and didn't say much. My mother kind of ran the show. And I remember her getting angry with me at times because I wouldn't go out and clean the sidewalks, shovel the snow, or go pick the apples on the apple tree that we had, or go feed the chickens. We had chickens and things like that. And I was a little bit lazy during those years. And as I grew up and got older, I started to see the light. But I remember her, Italian. They were very, very strong Italian heritage, and everybody were supposed to work. And I was a little bit lazy that way. I was so busy playing football and playing basketball and doing this and that and running around that, and I look back and I wish I would have done more at that time. But I was busy being an athlete.
Right. And so your brothers were pretty much athletes also?
Oh, yeah,
You-
yeah.
you
Fury
were
was a
saying they
great
were-
baseball player, so was my brother Nello. They were both two great baseball players, yeah. Yeah, they really were.
Gloria was too.
And my sister
Yeah,
Gloria,
really.
She was a good athlete.
Yeah, she was a good athlete. In fact, when we were real young, we used to run races. She would beat me in a race. It used to make me angry because I couldn't beat her in a race. And as I got older, then she wouldn't race me anymore.
How much younger than
We're,
Gloria were you?
3
we're
years.
actually
3 years.
3 years younger. I'm 3 years younger than Gloria. Yeah. She was very domineering. I mean, she was the boss.
So
She's
where did you go to school?
Where did I go? I went to the University of Denver.
Let's
No, I'm in grade
let's start
school.
way back.
Oh,
Let's start at the
well,
beginning.
I went to St. Louis Catholic School. At that time, it's right there where still right there. They remodeled it and all that. But I went to St. Louis School, and we had
till
nuns
8th grade.
for-
Till 8th grade, yeah.
Yeah, we had until the 8th grade. We went through the 8th grade. That was our junior, and then I went to Louisville High School, which is now the middle school.
Do you remember any of your teachers?
The nuns.
Yeah, probably remember the elementary school teachers more than anybody. I remember
nuns?
they were mean. Sister Alfreda, Sister Ermelinda, I can remember some of them. And
Anesia.
Sister Marita, and they were very strict and they were disciplinarians, and what they used to do you couldn't get away with now in this day and age. And, you know, I know.
But you got a good education.
Oh yeah, they were very strict. Yeah, we'd had to go to mass every Sunday. I mean
Every day.
And I mean, we have to take turns reading parts of the mass and be lectors and things like
Altar
that.
boys.
Altar boys, and they were very strict. Yeah, those were the days. They were tough, boy. Never forget that.
So did you, when you went to recess, did you have a good time then?
Oh yeah,
When you got out of school?
oh yeah, that was, yeah. Well, we had, I still, when I take walks every day and I go by there and I look at that playground, I say, yeah, I remember playing in that playground. And
Same
Was it-
playground?
same thing, yeah,
Really?
but it's
They-
all
they have-
modernized now.
yeah.
But, in
They
that
probably
same
had a
day.
swing set, maybe.
That's one of my favorite walks now. I take a walk. I walk about 45 minutes a day now. And I walk by my old school and by the church and reminisce and take my time. Yeah, those were the days.
What kind of games did you play when you were in recess? Was that
A
baseball and things?
we used to
still
play a
the
lot of softball. I remember that. Yeah, a lot of slow pitch softball, that type of thing. And once in a while we'd play tackle football, which really wasn't to be permitted, you know, because kids got hurt and this and
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
same? Did you go home for lunch every day?
No, I
or
used
take your
to.
lunch?
My mother used to pack our lunch, and then we used to eat lunch at school. Yeah,
Hmm.
And you were still on Main Street at that time? You
lived
Oh.
right on
that house?
541 Main Street.
He lived there till he got married.
I lived there. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, except for the college years.
Well, when I turned 20 years old, I was pretty much gone then, into college, and I was in the military service too.
so Lois, you weren't going to the Catholic school? You were.
No, I went to
Yeah.
Louisville Elementary, yeah, public school. So we went there till 6th grade, and then we went to 7th and 8th at the high school, 7th and 8th, and 4 years at the other school. So we spent 6 years at the Louisville High School. Our 7th and 8th grade classes went there. Yeah, so I spent 6 years in that school, and but Fred and I knew each other. Probably we met each other in 8th grade, because he won the American Legion Award for the outstanding student in Catholic school, and I won it for the outstanding student in the public school in the 8th grade. And we were on the stage together.
And this was at the local American?
Yeah, well, the
And well, they
American
did it
Legion,
at the
yeah.
high school. American Legion used to give out medals
And they-
for the 8th grade classes, the graduating 8th grade classes. So, and that's where we were on the stage together there. And I think we had known each other a little bit, you know, because there weren't that many kids in town. But after that, freshmen, we started dating. Not dating, we didn't date. I mean, you met everybody downtown,
I see.
at the drugstore.
Where was the drugstore?
It was on Main Street. It was Rylett's Drugstore, and then was the Bungalow
the
Drugstore
Bungalow.
also.
The Bungalow
You know, that
Drugstore.
was on this end of Main Street, on the south end of Main Street, and Rylett's was in the middle. What is there now? I don't even know what's there now, but that's where the kids would congregate in the evenings before they went to the movies or whatever. You know,
The soda fountain is.
there was a soda fountain, yeah. And then, you know, Fred worked at the Rex Theater.
I was just going to bring that up.
Oh, okay. Well,
So-
that's
I used to
nice.
run the projector in the movies
Oh, you did?
at the old Rex Theater, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I used to do. And I always
And
remember
I mean-
she used to wait for me
I didn't wait for him after
after
till
I
they
left with Louis.
got all the reels put together. But, you know, even when we were little kids, the movies were the only thing going on in town. We used to go Saturday mornings for a nickel and watch the cowboy serials, and
Yeah.
go in the afternoon, and 3 times a week at night. I mean, you know, the movies didn't cost but 10 cents.
And Sandy Biella, I don't know if you remember that name. He used to the Biellas.
He owned the
Sandy. He owned the theater, and I used to work for him, and I ran the.
How old were you then?
I was in high school. I was in high school at the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was quite an ordeal. Yeah.
So it was kind of an after school and
It was
Saturday.
after school.
Yeah, after
yeah.
football and after
yeah.
dinner. Yeah.
Those were the days. Yeah.
Did you get to see some good movies while you were doing it? or
Oh,
you were
yeah.
I
busy
got
on
well,
the
but you have to
projector?
look. But I got tired of looking at them over and over because we
Yeah.
show the same movie probably three
Three.
days in a row, and then when the new movie came on, it would be better, and then. You had to stay on the ball.
That was the only entertainment in town, really.
Oh, that was something.
You had to go to the show. We called it the show.
Yeah, go to the show.
Do you ever have any breakdowns with
Yes.
the
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They'd run a little picture of the operator lost his head.
See,
They had to be rolling out there.
It would break. The film would break, and then they would say sorry, the other girl, the operator just lost his head. That was funny. Yeah, those were the days. Yeah.
Fred, did you get paid for this job? that
Oh
you
Yeah.
did?
Oh
Okay, do
yeah.
you remember how
Oh.
much they paid you? It's been a while.
How much you got paid?
Oh, in those days, I think it was like $5 a night or something. Like
$5 a week, probably.
that. No, maybe. Could
Wasn't
be.
much.
Wasn't very much, but to me it was a lot of money. 'Cause, my father was a coal miner, and that
Yeah.
was my money.
I don't think there were too many jobs in town either, so.
Well, I'm going with Lois. You see, she's high maintenance, so I got to take care of my girlfriend. No.
But we walked everywhere because no one had a car. He finally got a car when we were seniors, and it was his sister's car,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't go many places unless somebody with a car would take us. We used to go to the Boulder Theater, which was a big deal. If we got a ride to the Boulder Theater, the movies over there with other people, but he didn't have a car for a long time.
Boy, those were
I think we walked to the prom. Our first time we went to the prom, we walked.
You were living on Front Street at the time?
And Lafarge.
Lafarge.
Yeah, we never lived on Front Street like it says in that questionnaire. We lived on Lafarge.
Lafarge.
2 different houses on Lafarge Street. Yeah. And Fred would come up, in the evening in the summertime, and he'd be at my house, and then his mother, who lived on Main Street, she'd come up the block and up the next block and stand on the corner and yell for him to come home. Freddie, it's time to come home. So that was funny. I mean, that's when we were young. I mean, that was probably ninth and
Don't get me
10th
wrong, I
grade.
was a good boy.
He was a good boy.
Of course.
And his mother made sure he was a good boy. She really made him go
Well,
home.
he was the youngest.
He was the youngest, and there was nobody home, for.
Sure.
Yeah, those were fun days.
Well, what did you enjoy your school classes as well as football and all those other sports?
Not really.
I wasn't. Football was always in track. I was track and football, and a little bit of baseball in the summer. But I got so immersed in sports and then being a real top student was kind of hard.
stop for a moment? I think we could.
And that had to be 36, 35, 36. And I don't know when it opened before that. And then when it closed, had to be in the 60s.
We were gone then.
You know, and then they opened a drive-in out on South Boulder Road, Romano's, but that didn't last very long. That drive-in, remember that?
You're right, yeah. It was on South Boulder Road.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a real sad thing when that movie house closed. You know, there was nothing for the kids to do.
When the Rex closed?
Yeah. Well, we were already married and gone, so that had to be in the 60s.
60s, yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you were in high school, would have been the
40s.
very beginning of the Second
Well,
World
we both
War.
graduated
We were in the-
48.
We were in the 6th grade when the war started, and probably in the 45. We were going to be juniors in high school. What was I going to say? You know, one question that I saw that Bridget wanted was, what did we do during the war for entertainment? You know, we had a building on Main Street that was vacant, and I think the American Legion Auxiliary put a canteen in there. You know, we had a jukebox, and because the soldiers used to stop down at the depot and walk up into town, and the American Legion Auxiliary had donuts in there, and music, and a dance, kind of a dance floor. You remember that?
Yep.
But mostly it was the kids in town that went there. I mean, I don't remember ever seeing a soldier in there. But it was for...
So it was a nice place for you.
It was a nice place to go, and that had to be in like 44, 45, and that was a fun place to go because they had a jukebox and they always had donuts in there, and there was one of the ladies was always in there, one of the American Legion ladies. But that was a fun place to congregate for the kids in town. But that didn't. Then after the war, that was gone. I can't remember what building it was. It was empty.
I can't remember either, but they had it.
It was next to the town hall.
So the passenger train was still coming
Yeah, the
through.
passenger train, and it would stop, and apparently the soldiers would get out and walk around, and so they set up that canteen in that building. But if they ever came, they didn't come when I was there. And we used to go after school all the time. It was fun.
The depot?
The depot was right off of by the tracks, by the railroad tracks, off of Pine.
Right near the...
Was it off of Pine?
Well, right,
Yeah.
right near the restaurant there,
Oh,
the
Pine Street Junction.
yeah,
Yeah.
Pine Street, yeah.
Pine Street Junction. Yeah, that's what that was before. Yeah, it was right there. The depot was right there.
So you could go into Denver on the train?
Oh, a lot.
Do
Yeah,
that?
we did that a lot. Go to Denver on the train. We could go to Boulder on the train. You know, go downtown Denver. Me and my sister with that. We did that a lot. It was fun. Yeah, and now I mean that had to cost next to nothing too. You know, probably a quarter, maybe 50 cents to go to. And why they ever got rid of passenger trains, I'll never know why, because that was, you know, all the tracks were there.
So convenient.
So convenient for everybody. Everybody had a station, every town. But they had better plans. They got spend billions of dollars on the light rail that nobody rides.
So you had some pretty big football games going while
Oh yeah.
you were in school. With what, Lafayette? Was
What-
that your big?
Lafayette and Louisville were big rivals. As I said before, the towns would close up whenever there was a game, and a lot of the elderly returned vets during my junior and senior year when the war was over, a lot of those guys would bet a lot of money, and there were a lot of disturbances, I should say, or fights between people from Lafayette and Louisville. I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about the townspeople. A lot of things used to go on in you know, in the background that, that you couldn't do it now, but they used to do a lot of betting. And I remember Louisville and Lafayette, whoever won that game, and we pretty much dominated Lafayette. But there were some years before my time that Lafayette won, like the game, the scores would be 7-6 or 6-0.
Be fights afterwards.
But boy, those were the days.
When we were seniors, we went to the state final, and we had to play Burlington, Colorado. Fred, we were both seniors. I was the cheerleader, he was football player, and we had to travel to Burlington, and the football team flew down there. They, Elrod and who else? My uncle, and they chartered a plane for the football team, and that was the first time a high school team had ever flown to a game. And they flew the team to a game, and then practically the whole town of Louisville went to that game. I mean, I think we had like 4 buses full of people that drove down there, and we got beat 45-0. Fred broke his nose. Several of the players got hurt.
Those big farm boys.
Big farm boys.
We went into that game. We were like 11-0. Never lost a game, and went down to Burlington, and they just killed us.
Physically and well.
And then when I went, well, it was really funny too. Later on, when I went to college, I played football with a couple of guys that were from Burlington.
Yeah.
And we got to be good friends.
Yeah,
We
and
were
in the
raised-
Army also, he ran it.
I was in the Army with a
couple of
them. Yeah.
and they were big farm
they
boys.
Were big farm
And
kids.
they were veterans
Yeah.
that came back and went back to high school and played football.
During those days, veterans that didn't finish high school, if they hadn't turned 20 yet, they could go back to high school.
I see.
And I remember going down there, and those guys were mature. They were big, mature men. And we're high school kids. They just killed us. I'll never forget it. Why'd you bring that up? I wish that would have been.
Fred, was it 8-man football or?
Oh, no.
Oh, no,
It was a
11 man.
full-
No, we played good football.
And they're all on dirt fields. We didn't have any grass.
What did you
Grass
play?
Wasn't coming in.
He was a halfback. He was a running back.
I was a running back.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my life. Football.
And
Did everything.
that's why, and he got a scholarship to
Sure.
play football at DU.
So you, then after graduation,
Mhm.
you were scholarship to DU?
I attended the University of Denver on a athletic scholarship, and I spent 2 years. Then during the Korean War, I was drafted out of school. And then I was in the Army for 2 years, and then went back to the University of Denver and finished my last 2 years. Played football on another scholarship. I was on a scholarship and a GI Bill, so it worked out pretty
We
good.
were
So
married.
you were
We
the
were married,
veteran
and we were
in
married
the
at the
college.
time. We were married
Yeah,
at the
it was.
time.
There were a lot of veterans on that team because they
A lot
were
of
all
veterans.
coming out of the Korean War, and
And my last 2 years, I was on a great football team at the University of Denver. Bob Blackman was our coach. He was a famous coach that went on to Dartmouth. He wanted me to go with him and coach when I graduated, and I didn't want to. I wanted to stay with.
well, we had 3 kids by then, and he got an offer.
Yeah.
He got an offer to play pro football up in Calgary when he graduated, and he also got an offer to be the first football coach at Cherry Creek High School that opened in 1955. That's when he graduated. And I tell the story that he decided that the football pay was $3,600 a year. The high school pay was $3,000 a year. And if he signed with Calgary, he got a $200 signing bonus. So he signed with Calgary.
That made the difference.
Oh,
And when he went up to Calgary, we already had 3 kids, and I moved back to Louisville. He went to Calgary for that one season,
I see.
and then he got hurt that first year. He came back home. We lived in Louisville, right on Spruce and Jefferson. We lived in that corner house, catty corner from the park. So we lived in that house until until he went back to school in September, and then we moved to DU.
So what year did you get married?
1950.
1950.
So we just celebrated our 60th. We didn't really have a celebration. We had a pretty good sized celebration on our 50th in Louisville. So we didn't do anything on our 60th. Maybe 65 will.
So you loved football, Lois.
Oh, I really did. I liked football even when I was in high school because I was competitive too, and I went to all the games. And then when you start at DU, I went to the DU games. When I didn't get to go to any in Calgary, but
My wife Lois probably attended
yeah,
more football games with 5 sons and her husband being a coach. Probably
Yeah.
attended more football games than any human being in America,
at least any other woman.
any other woman.
Wow.
Yeah, and I got to know football pretty well. You know, and my boys started when they were in Little League, and they played junior high ball, they played high school ball, they played college ball, and some of them went into coaching, and I've been to their coaching games, all of his high school games that his teams played at Cherry Creek. I used to bundle up all the kids, and we'd go to every game on Friday nights.
I need to say this. When we used to have our football banquets, I would introduce her as the head coach, and I was the assistant.
It got so the
can
people
see
in the
why.
stands would ask me, you know, I mean, it's 3rd down and long, and they'd say, "What play is he going to call? What play is he going to call?" You know, and I'd pick out a play. I knew what he was going to call, and then that's the one he would call. They thought I was a genius. I knew what he was going to do, you know.
So after Calgary, then Cherry Creek was.
Cherry, yeah.
Well,
Cherry Creek.
Well,
I
he
spent a year. I was in the sales business. I worked at Montgomery Ward in their management program and sold a little insurance for about a year. Then I went to Cherry Creek.
that was in what?
It was 1962.
62?
1962.
And
As
so
head
you
coach.
stayed at Cherry Creek how many years?
I stayed at Cherry Creek for 30 years. Was the head football coach 28 years.
And tell us what your how many games you won
Oh.
against the losses.
We keep forgetting.
I can't give you the figure, but it was a state record for a while. I think Dave Logan now, presently at Mullen, will probably surpass that.
I think it was 282 and 42. That was his record. 282, 42, and 2.
Well,
And it was like 87%. He had an 87% average, which at the time that he retired was the 3rd highest in the country. He had the highest winning average of any high school coach, and the 3rd highest in the country. And there were people that were older, coaches that were older than him had been, you know, at schools longer than him.
Well, I told you my son, whenever they had to play Cherry Creek,
Oh, yeah.
he was in Boulder High football team.
Tell
And
them
they'd say,
about the Hall of
"Oh, that
Famers."
coach down there, I don't think we're gonna win."
Well, and Fred, you know, was inducted into Colorado High School's the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame in 2005, and then he's the DU Hall of Fame. He was inducted into the CHASA Hall of Fame, the Cherry Creek Foundation Hall of Fame, and so he's built up a big reputation after he retired. It seems like everybody remembers the old guys, you know.
So your sons, your 5 sons, all played football?
They all got football
Must be a record
scholarships.
also.
They all got football scholarships.
We were very lucky, yeah.
They were all good. And Tom
And they
and
all played for Cherry Creek?
they all played for Cherry Creek. Tom and Jim went to CU on scholarships. Tim, our 3rd one, went to School of Mines, and then he went to UNC, where he graduated from. John, our 4th son, went to the University of Wyoming on scholarship and graduated, and they all graduated from college. And our youngest son, Ron, went to CSU. So we've also been to every football stadium in Colorado and Wyoming. I mean, we've been, especially me, I've been to every football stadium in Colorado.
Were there times when you were coaching more than one son at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah, for a while there, yeah, it was
Tom and Jim.
Tom and Jim, my 2 oldest sons, yeah.
And then Ron and John were together. John was a senior, Ron was a freshman.
And in fact, I got to mention this. When I was at Cherry Creek, we would win, and then we would get beat in the state finals. And it was finally when my last son, Ronnie, when he was a senior at Cherry Creek High School, we won our first state championship. That was 1982. So
That was exciting
that
for the
was
family.
that
Oh.
was the most exciting football experience of my
Event,
life.
yeah.
Was that year.
That first state championship, but we had to suffer through all the other boys
Right.
getting to the playoffs and losing. I mean, that was really tough. We'd get to the final game and lose. I mean, and I was the mom and the coach's wife, so I really had a tough time losing. But finally, Ronnie's
You were
team
the
made
head
it.
coach after all.
And now, now we're back in the news because one of the boys on that first state championship football team is now the coach at CU. John Embry played
just announced,
football for
right.
Cherry Creek, and he was on
Just
that first state
announced.
championship team. So now we're connected to CU again.
And there's someone else from the team that's also,
Yeah,
At CU.
yeah. J.D. Brookhart
J.D. Brookhart was on that same team.
was on the same team.
My son Ronnie.
And they were all Ron's senior. Oh, they were all Ron's friends. So we knew those boys really, really well. I mean, they were always at our house.
so one's the new coach and one's an assistant coach?
One, one's an assistant coach.
Well,
Yeah.
you need to tell them about when they used to come to your house. Tell them.
Oh, yeah.
On weekends, Ron used to bring.
No, that was Jimmy and Cabral.
That was Jim.
Brian Cabral, who's
Brian
another one of the
Cabral.
coaches,
Sure.
was at CU playing with Jimmy and Tommy. So he was from Hawaii, and they used to come to our house on weekends with Brian and Jimmy's other friend, but they would come for spaghetti down at our house, and I would do the laundry for those boys. They'd bring just tons of laundry to our house for the weekend, and they'd have a spaghetti their laundry. So those are good memories.
You
We're
still go to any games?
Once in a while. Yeah, I'm going to start going more now because of my
Yeah.
Right,
connections
you're
now.
right.
yeah. Well, we hope to get
You had
tickets
something
now.
to
We
do
got
with
to.
them getting there. You better.
I gotta tell you this quick story. The other night, they had a big
Reception, yeah.
reception for John Embry down at the Omni Hotel. Okay.
In Broomfield, yeah.
In Broomfield. A lot of people there. A lot of people. Well, anyhow, my neighbors picked me up. He was a graduate of the university. So he's, Fred, you got to go. I said, okay, I didn't even think about it. I'm glad he reminded me. Anyhow, I went with him. We went down to this reception. And I says, Coach Embry. He said, oh, Coach Tesone. And he hugged me. The first thing out of his mouth, he says, how's Lois doing? True story.
Well,
I'm not exaggerating. See?
Sounds like she was a mother to even more than 5
Yeah.
boys.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And that class was really special because they were all really close friends. All the football team, the seniors were all real close friends. So we knew them well.
So what did your daughter think about
Oh,
living in the house with all these football brothers?
Well, actually,
college
she went. We lived in Littleton for a while, so Edie went to Arapahoe High School, and when we moved to Cherry Creek, she was a senior, going to be a senior. So she didn't go to Cherry Creek High School. She graduated from Arapahoe,
I see.
but she went to all the games. I mean, she watched, especially Tom and Jim, and then when Tom was a senior, Edie
Went to the airline.
went to the airline, so she wasn't around for much of the games. But if she was home when they were playing in the playoffs, she would be nervous, just nervous. She wouldn't even go to the game because she got too nervous about everything. So
She didn't marry a football player?
no, she didn't marry a football player.
What about your grand?
I'm sorry, can I ask a question
Sure,
about coach?
sure.
Fred, who was your coach in high school?
O.T. Nuttall.
O.T. Nuttall.
Yeah.
You
Great
coached for
coach.
quite a while too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then he went to Westminster, and
Then he went to Westminster.
in fact, I saw in the paper his wife, his Faye Nuttall. Is that Mike Watch? Yeah, Faye Nuttall. His wife just died in Boulder, and she had to be way in her 80s, way high in her 80s, maybe 90s, because they, but they were young. They were young people.
Right.
I mean, he had to be a young coach when
He was
we
a
were in
great
high
coach,
school.
yeah.
Any of your grandchildren playing football or any interest in it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, somewhat. But
Yeah.
But I mostly have girls,
yeah.
granddaughters.
Our grandson Travis, that's Tom's son, played in high school, and now he coaches football in Kansas.
Really?
He's at a college in Kansas, and Tommy's youngest son is a freshman at Rock Creek? No, Rock Canyon
Rock Canyon
High School, and he plays. But it seemed like the girls were bigger than the boys, the grandchildren.
I see.
The boys are little, and the girls are big.
How many grandchildren?
Well, we have 13, and we have one granddaughter that's all everything, a Metro softball player at Metro State. She really is the only athlete of the girls.
She's really good.
Yeah, she's real good. So now we're softball grandparents.
So now you're going to softball.
Yeah, now,
games.
and we still go to football games because our son Ron coaches at Niwot High School. So we're still going to
So
football
how long
games.
have you lived back in Louisville after being gone for
Well,
many years?
we've lived in this house about 4.5 years now.
And this was an older home?
I think it was originally built in 1950. And we bought it from the Henriettos, from Bob Henrietto, who was a widower, and he decided to move to Balfour, and this house was kind of empty, and we just talked to him before it got on the market, and it was something, we had sold our big house in Niwot. We were living with our daughter, but we were looking for a house in Louisville. So when we saw this one, and he decided to sell it, and we got it. So we were very happy to move here, and of course we remodeled it, and we've been here 4.5 years.
No, you remodeled it.
I remodeled it.
And why I hired an engineer and a contractor, I'll never know. That was a waste of money.
Because I fought with them, if they didn't.
So you said you had designed your house at Niwot.
Yeah, I designed it. I worked on it, with the graph paper and all this, and I designed it. Had 3 floors, actually, 2 upper, and then the basement was finished. And I was the general contractor on it. I hired all the subs. And, we had the land, and we had sold our house in Cherry Creek, so we had the money. And it was a fun project. And we started that house in May of '87. We moved, they finished it in November of '87. And we lived there for 19 years till we bought this one. So
Now you're back home again.
now we're back home again. We've been looking at houses in Louisville for a long, long time, ever since we moved out of Cherry Creek. But our daughter found this property out in Niwot, this 70 acres that was for sale just about the time Fred was going to retire. So we went in with her and we bought all that land in Niwot, and that's where we built a house. So that was a fun project. It was hard to leave that house because it was the perfect house. I designed it, and it was everything I wanted.
Of course.
Yeah, it was a good house.
Chris, do you have other questions?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact.
Oh. Yeah, well, in Longmont, they had a dance hall that all the kids in Louisville and Lafayette and Longmont would go over there, and you bought tickets to dance. They had a band, and the tickets were a dime a piece, and usually the boys bought the tickets and would ask the girls to dance and whatever, like old times. But we didn't have too many cars in Louisville by then, and the older guys would get cars. They would be over there, and I remember when we were in high school, there were very few boys had cars, and the ones that did always piled a ton of kids in there and went off, and then there'd be a few of us younger ones that were standing on the street corner waiting for a car to come by and stop and you know, bribe them to take us over there, take us to the jitney and dance. And then when we got over there, well, we always got other rides home, and we'd leave this poor guy in the lurch. I could tell you his name, you know, usually. It was Victor. Victor Urbane had a car, yeah. Urbane, and you know, and so we would climb in his car, and he'd take us over to Longmont so we could go to the dances. But that was a lot of fun. But the older guys got into a lot of trouble over there because they would be drinking, and I mean the older guys, the 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds probably, huh? That would fight out there.
Trouble there, yeah.
They had a lot of problems there, but that was a good place to be. Those were fun times, fun places to go.
Was that during the war? Do you have gas rationing?
Probably during the war.
Down the early 40s, yeah.
Yeah.
40s and middle 40s.
Middle 40s.
So you would have had gas rationing?
Yeah, oh yeah, and my sister tells a story that our dad ran the school bus, so he had gas coupons. So they would bribe their way with the gas coupons to get somebody to take them over. And that was a lot of fun. But when we went to Denver, we used to go to the theaters in Denver, you know, and go in the afternoon and go to the Denham Theater and watch a movie. Or I know my sister and I used to do that a lot. And then we'd go walking around the Capitol building, you know, just mainly sightseeing. And Fred had a sister that lived in Denver, and we go visit her. Well, that's after we were married. But when Maxine and I were younger, we went to Denver a lot on the train. I guess on Saturdays we'd go shopping in downtown Denver, you know. And nobody, I mean, we were just young girls. Nobody worried about us, and we just walked the streets like everybody else downtown.
Go into Union Station?
Oh yeah, you went to Union Station and then you walked, or I don't remember even taking a bus. We just walked all over town, went to the show, you know, went to the movie houses, because that was big time. I mean, the Denham Theater and the Denver Theater and the Paramount Theater down in Denver, you know. We went to the matinees and then come home on the train. Oh, fun days.
Did you go to Boulder?
We went to Boulder a lot. I remember, you know, when we were young, Mom and Dad would always go to Boulder to buy a week's groceries, or you know, they go to Woolworths, or you know, on Pearl Street was the main street, and they had a Woolworth store there, and we got to go there, or they would go and get a bunch of groceries over in Boulder somewhere and bring them home on Saturdays, and that was the big shopping experience of the week on Saturday. Mom and Dad would go and bring us home stuff, and we got to go once in a while and go to Woolworths. That was a biggie.
Did you have gardens?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody had gardens and chickens and rabbits. Yeah, everybody had a garden. Yeah, my mom did a lot of canning. You know, they just did everything. Had eggs and.
You have victory gardens during the war, is that what they called them?
Yeah, but we had gardens all the time. I can remember anyhow. His mother used to bake bread. Did she sell bread? Do you remember? She had a big outdoor oven.
I don't know about selling it, but she used to make bread.
Yeah,
for
I think
people.
she.
Know that, for the church and.
Yeah.
I remember when my dad was raising chickens, and I used to trap the chickens. I would get a box and I would put a stick with a little rope or twine, and I'd hide, and the chickens would go underneath that thing, and I would
Just to hear him holler.
just to hear them, and then I would trap the chicken under that box, and the box would, and I remember my dad caught me one time, and I'll never
Threw a
forget
broom
this.
at him.
No, he chased me, and then my dad was, he was not the disciplinarian, but chased me with a broom. And he broke the broom on the side of the house chasing me. He
How
swung it.
old were you? Do you remember?
Oh, I must have been about 12 years old at the time. And he broke the broom on the side of the house, and my mother got mad at him for breaking her broom. And I was laughing.
And you got away.
I was down the streets. Wow.
Did you have to help clean the chickens? And
Once in a while I did, very once in a while. But like I said, I didn't do it.
But that,
A lot
I
of
can
us-
remember my mom doing that, you know.
Yeah.
My dad we had a stump out in the yard where he would chop their heads off, and then Mom would stick them in that boiling water with that smell, that awful smell, and we'd have to
Or to
pluck the
pluck the
pin feathers, and then she'd get a newspaper rolled up and light it to burn all the feathers, and I can remember that smell was awful.
But you ate the chicken.
Oh, he loved the chicken, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and rabbits too. We had rabbits. We ate rabbit a lot. And pheasant. I used to go pheasant hunting. My uncle did. And we had
remember how they
pheasants.
used to
You know,
clean
we
the
ate
chickens,
pheasants a
and
lot.
They used to clean them. And they used to put them in hot boiling water, and then they could peel them easy.
Yeah.
And then they always wanted me to do that, but I wouldn't do that. I didn't
You know,
like
the
doing
girls did that. Yeah.
that. I didn't like doing that, man. My mother did most
Well,
of
you
that.
got away with a few things,
Oh, yeah.
Fred.
Oh yeah, he was the baby. Yeah.
Oh, I was,
She babied him.
my dad used to call me the biggest shot. You don't do nothing. There's the biggest shot, he say. Yeah. Oh boy.
Did you go hunting?
Yeah. In my early, I would say, in my
Probably early.
20s, in our early years of marriage, I used to go pheasant hunting and once in a while duck hunting. I never did go deer hunting. A lot of my friends did, but
Fishing a lot too.
you know, even in your old grounds, I used to hunt pheasants there. And when
And
I
they
was
used
a
to
kid,
trap muskrats down at Cold Creek.
And I used to trap muskrats down by the farm down there.
And what did you do with them after you trapped
We,
them?
Eugene Caranci and I and Leroy Warmberg, once in a while we were in it together. We'd go trap muskrat and we would skin them. We'd skin them. We'd sell the muskrats.
Sell the skin. Sell the skins.
We would sell the skins, not the muskrats. Sell the skins, and we made like $5 a skin on them or something. Yeah, we used to do that way back when. Yeah.
They use it for fur coats or what? What did
Well,
they?
the
use the skins
they
for?
were. They
I don't know
were-
what they made, hats or gloves or whatever they made out of.
They were. I don't know. They used the fur. The fur was an expensive fur at that time. Yeah, we used
Yeah.
to trap muskrats.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember Eugene Caranci and I think Leroy Warmberg, we had traps down in the creek down there by the holes where the muskrats come in, and we had and somebody stole our traps. And I had an idea who it was, and I never could, and that caused some turmoil, but that's neither here or there right now, but and that kind of ended our days, you know. Somebody was kind of a...
make new traps. that
Well,
was-
we used to try to go early in the morning, but we were in school at the time. And whoever this guy was, he would go earlier than us. He'd get up earlier than us. He'd go steal our traps, or steal our muskrats too. And I
This
didn't
was
like
in
that.
high
So
school.
that ended our little
I bet
business
there's
there.
not a muskrat in that creek anymore, or any animals.
Yeah,
Oh, really? A lot of animals down there?
yeah.
Yeah, we have turkey down there and sometimes mountain lion. We had a bear one year.
Oh my
We have
gosh.
deer. We have elk every now and then.
Oh my gosh. They come down the creek bed?
Yeah, they live down there.
We saw a mountain lion go right down the street here one day, our street right here. This was not too long ago.
Our neighbor saw him.
Our neighbor saw it. Well, I went out and
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few animals down there. So that sounds like fun. Where did you went fishing? Did you go fishing at the pond? The Wilbur Pond, or where did you fish when you went fishing?
Oh, we used to go to the mountains. I used to go in the high mountains. I used to hike a lot
Oh, really?
into the high mountains.
Nederland,
We used to
Nederland.
fish Boulder Creek sometimes, and
He used to take his dad to
Sainsbury Creek.
Netherlands.
and then I would take my dad
the
in my
reservoir.
little early days up to Netherland. and we fished the Netherland Reservoir. We fished that, and we fished Dillon, and then after we had our family, our boys were young, we would, I had a camper, and we would go camping up at, where'd we go?
11 Mile and Yampa.
11 Mile Reservoir, Yampa Reservoir. We did a lot of that. Yeah.
So what, if we have a little time here, what would you like to leave us with? Any
Just,
any special or
just thank you for talking to us about something that we love very much.
Yeah.
Our heritage and
good?
I think the early days that we went to school in the high school were probably I can remember those days better than I can after we were married and raising the kids. You know, that time went so fast, but
Right.
our young years, I can remember a lot of times in Louisville, the houses we lived in and the people we knew, you know, that are no longer around.
thank you for bringing it all back